Fine. We've got a lot to cover today. So let me start by just saying welcome. Thank you for attending this month's Cogitate meeting. I know last month we did a postponement because we were still in the midst of a massive, massive update that we've done to the software. Um, Kind of like it's one of the we're kind of akinning it to the idea that, hey, I just put a new engine in my car, but when you look at the car, it doesn't really look any different. So very similar here. When you see the screens, they're not going to look a whole lot different, but there's a lot that went into crafting and honing the engine underneath it. So, um, and we're coming up on the end of that process. So I want to cover what we've done, some of the things we're doing, but let's go ahead and begin the webinar. So basically, we did an update, pending changes and some new features, but we're going to skip that screen and just go here. Again, today we have quite a few people on, so if you have any questions or anything, just pop a message in chat. Paul will indicate if there's anything in there that's happening. We'll leave a little bit of time at the end of each of the topics for if there's a topic question that people can raise. But the amount of time I'm going to leave this today is going to be a lot less than I have in the past, just because, like I said, we've got a lot to cover today for the what we've been doing to it, the software. But it's all good, all good. All right, business first, September 9th will be our next webinar. And again, same channel, same time. But just so everybody's aware, it's going to be September 9th because the first Monday is, of course, Labor Day. So today we're going to be talking about just our standard updates, the things that we've changed. I have a section called pending changes. We're going to be talking about things that we've been trying to get finished up, but just never get a chance to get finished. We're going to talk about some of the new features we'll be adding. And then we wanted to cover the ending availability of some of the pieces of our software coming up at the end of this year. So we're going to start off with the SAD ending availability. Pro Fund Accounting Works time card. That's the kiosk. And the Microsoft SQL warnings are going to keep appearing until 12/1 of 2024. After 12/1, the next update you have will not have PFA Works time card. And of course, the SQL warning, if you don't have the newer version of SQL installed and running by then, we will just basically bring up a message and say, please update, and you'll need to update until you can basically get your back end updated so we can get the whole system back in square, so we're back up to date. Mainly it's because Microsoft has been making so many changes to SQL over the last couple of years, and we just can't keep supporting the older versions of SQL. So we want to bring everybody at least up to the 2019 version of SQL, but 2022 would be preferable. Again, the software will continue to work. I mean, until you update the software, nothing will really change on 12/1. But at the first update after the 12/1, the software then will have the PFA Works pieces removed, so that they won't be available anymore. But so you have a little bit of time if you drag it out. But if you don't get an update before the end of the year, you'll be missing the taxes for the following year. So really, let's start making sure we get off of the time card altogether. I'm not going to extend it anymore because we're having some issue between that and the new time card system working in conjunction. So we want to be done with the old version of it and then work on to get everybody up on the new. And then make sure that if you're going to be upgrading your Microsoft SQL, you bring it up to version 2019 or 2022. We prefer 2022. But if you can't get 2022 because of your other external reasons, then 2019. Please make sure you get that scheduled in here. The last thing we want is we don't want a last minute, we have to get that updated. I'll leave that between you and your technicians. We'll be glad to help on the phone during any time of that. But simply just please make sure you get this updated before 12/1. All right, so that's the end of ending availability. Do we have any quick questions on that? Okay, anything up in chat, Paul?
I am not seeing anything in chat.
All right, then off we go. Financial update. We did a bunch of updating to our financials. We put together a budget program, and we had a lot of feedback over the last couple of months. So basically, the idea that we're looking for is we want to make sure that anybody uh, who needs to use the financial budget should be able to. So I'm going to let Paul take it from here to cover the changes because he was the one primarily responsible for overseeing them and testing them. So go ahead, Paul.
Okay. The biggest change that we made to financials is we added the ability to add revenue and expense accounts at any level to the budget. So when you go into your budget and when you click add account, you can now specify any account level 1 through 7 to add to your budget. So we now allow budgeting at any level. And we also allow budgeting at multiple levels. So you can have the level 3 and the level 7 that has that level 3 account in there. That's probably our biggest change. And then I also want to point out that when you create a budget, the default account will still be at the 4th level. So when you go in and create your budget from the option create an empty budget, it will still be all at the 4th level. However, if you've created a budget for the previous year and you've already gotten your level 7 accounts that you want at budget at the 7th level and you have your 4th level, you can if you create from last year's budget, it will automatically give you those account levels. So once you get it set up, each year you shouldn't have to keep adding in the 7th level. Okay, next one. Financial statements will correctly adjust the actual data if you have like level 7s and then the level 4 in it as well. So I made sure that we didn't double count the data. And again, it's an Excel spreadsheet, so pretty much everything is formula based. So most, especially when you get to the monthlies, you'll see how the formula is working. And if you need to make adjustments on your Excel spreadsheet, you can easily make an adjustment, especially on the budgeting side of it, and it should adjust the months as well. And then the last thing we did for the financial statement specifically is we added a checkbox to the top of it. So going back to the financial editing, when you're creating your balance sheet line items, you may not there may be some asset, liability, or equity accounts that you don't assign to a balance sheet line. Thus, on our balance sheet in our financial statements, we include those under a header called unassigned accounts for assets, liabilities, and equities. So if you don't want that data to be included in the financial statement, you can check that box and you won't even see that line or any of that data if you only wanted to see specific account numbers on the balance sheet. So those are the biggest changes we made to the financial to our financial system. So I guess if there's any questions on that, I can please post.
Okay, so thanks, Paul. Again, if you have any questions about any what we just talked about for the financials, I know we're not really showing and telling you right now. We will give some time for that later if somebody is looking for that. But we just want to get through all the changes through the PowerPoint before we move on to actually doing a lot of show and tell, just so we can stay on topic. Not really seeing anything come through. Have you seen anything, Paul, on yours?
I am not seeing anything in chat.
Okay. Like I said, I'm not going to spend a lot of time, so be quick on your chats if you need to ask a question or about a topic. You can come back to it later too. Okay, so Pro Fund Accounting has many pending changes that we've done. You notice we're kind of going in backwards order, and that's on purpose. But basically the idea is we've done a lot of pending changes, things that we started and still haven't had a chance to complete because of one or two large tasks that's involved in, completing it. So we did a replacement for the account maintenance a couple of months ago, so we could add an Act 51 line to it to provide the Act 51 mechanisms. But again, we haven't just had the time to complete that. We have employee mate. We had the little group of gurus to help us get through breaking up in the employee maintenance into the proper places between HR and payroll. Again, we got 90% of the way through it, but we're still waiting for that last 10% to figure out the bigger issue. Inventory maintenance, we went through and did a lot of work to get the screens for inventory maintenance done, but again, we haven't had a chance to complete it because we've been focusing on the current thing we've been doing, which has been a big update system. We had fixed assets for a while that we had out that we were doing, and again, there was some problem with the calculation being identical to the older ones, so we put that on hold. We've been doing we have a piece of some of the year-end updates, explicitly the what do you call it, fringe spread and cost of roads and post balances forward are all things that we kind of got started on, but never really were able to finish because it hasn't working right. So these are just things that we've had in our system that have been pending that we want to take the time to complete and get them updated and set to theirs. And the reason I'm talking about it, because there's just, there's only, as we now know, there's only so many hours in a day, and I can't quite do this plus do one of the things that, we also had the ACH for payables. Oh, in the video, in the manual and the video. Okay, so yeah, there's still a couple things I forgot about. But basically, we were so busy doing these updates while we're getting through it that we were trying to, get ready because these last 3 months we wanted to focus on document management. The question I would have for everybody is, I'd rather get these other things finished up this year and then start document management beginning of next, the first January 1st of next year. Because always the last 2 months of November and December are kind of a wash for us because of the tax season and the updates. The last year we had the huge update with the doing the ACA for the Healthcare Act, putting all that together to do the online stuff with the ID.me. And all of those pieces required to be able to do the upload file. So this year, now that that's done, we're hoping it's not going to be such a big task, but I have to give time for it just in case that, they decide to change the whole thing yet again a new way. But again, so again, what I'm asking is, we did promise at the beginning of this year that we would have document management in this by the end of this year. I'm asking if you guys think it'd be all right if we move document management to start at the beginning of next year with the release probably the second quarter of next year. It's going to take us about 3 months to put it in as from what we've looked at. So pop in the chat any good questions, anything about that if you think that's going to be all right. If we really, really need document management to show up earlier, we can start it, now and leave the pending updates. Let me see if I can go back a slide. Hang on. Go find my mouse. There it goes. There we go. So, all of these things are going to still be on hold until we can finally get, we think we can get through all of this by the end of this year. In other words, that's what we're trying to get to. These things they're not, like I said, they're very close to being done. Just a couple of little pieces that are tested right or didn't add up right when we did it. So document management, that's where you could scan in a document and it would attach itself to like your invoice, and it would be a PDF that's held in a magical area that you don't know anything about. But then when we run our software, there'll be a small little icon on the when you go to like inventory post or when you go to even payroll post, anything that you have a document for instance, like employee meet, you might want to, have scanned in the, person's driver's license, scanned in a copy of his W-4 if you wanted to do that. Um, Things like that. That would be, any kind of document that, like warranty for inventory. Just a lot of places like that where we would allow you to scan in the information with, again, whatever scanner you need to have, and then, but it would get linked or tied to a part inside of the ProFund accounting software, so that when you come back and retrieve it, you'd be able to see that, piece and be able to do what you need to do with it. View it, print it, um, things like that. As well as, of course, as you're posting, you can then assign them things. So if you guys can wait a little bit, I know it was a hot topic, and I know Precision just got done adding something that would be, with that. But I just wanted to know, we are aware of it. We do want to do it. We just would rather get through a lot of these little pieces so that they're not sitting out there pending. But that's going to also require a little bit help from you guys when we get to that, to say, look, we need some assistance on how do you want this to operate, because we don't want it. We're trying not to work in a vacuum as much as we have in the long past history. So we really want to get your feedback on some of these, and I'll be having a little webinar meeting or little meetings during the course of the time when we get there. I've got 3 groups out right now, so those will be the primary groups I rely on for it. But again, we want to get all of the pieces in so that these little side projects, I call them, but not really side projects, but you get the idea. I want to get through this. I'd really get through this stuff before we tackle a really big update. So, okay, I see most people are okay with waiting. Seems like that's a reasonable thing to do. I'll put out a notice to everybody that says we'll be getting it in the first part of January. Provided there's not, like I said, 3,000 tax things that have to change, or there's a whole new online system we have to interface with that's brand new yet again this year. I don't anticipate that. My links to all the federal government haven't really indicated that, so I have to believe that we won't be spending a lot of time on the tax updates at this point. We should be pretty straightforward. All right, well, very good. So let's move on. The updates. What in the heck have we done for the last 3.5 weeks or 4 months, or what's it been? 3 months, 2 months, last 2 months that we started this. When you guys went to your financial meeting back in May, I think.
Late May.
Late May, yep. Then we started a process during there to bring our base code, and this doesn't really mean a lot to you guys, but to what's called the latest best practices for developing enterprise software. Where that comes from is a series of documentations from Google and Microsoft put together that we did to say, okay, when you're writing software in the language we choose, which is C#, and the platform, which is .NET, there's some best practices you should follow. And, we have a lot of code out there that just wasn't following those best practices. So I spent the time to have, my newest people here that we hired in, as well as us old folks, learning those new best practices and start changing all of the source code to apply those best practices. So kind of like I said, the engine is being updated, but you don't really get to see a whole lot because the body work is still pretty much the same. But things work a lot. There was just several key pieces that we did, but they take a while. It's just to get them all straightened around. What this means is going in the future, things should work a lot smoother. And there's a base that we can work against that says, we've tested this base a lot. Now, part of this that we've done is we did a full test of the software, and I'm going to turn it over to Brett to kind of talk about all the pieces and steps we did to do this full test of the software. Really, we spent a lot of times going from head to toe, but I'll let him get into that.
Okay, uh, hopefully everybody can hear me. Good morning, everybody. Um, Long time listener, first time contributor. Um, I was telling Paul this is going to be a fun one because it's like when you're doing a whole bunch of work at home and then you tell your significant other about all the hard work you've done trying to get credit for it. But I can't take full credit for all this because it's been a team-wide effort, including our two new employees that George mentioned, both of which we've been fortunate they've been able to contribute in meaningful ways immediately. And unfortunately, we're going to lose our intern soon, but we still have our other employee. But so all this time, this has kind of been the summer of extensive major overview and updating. And so even though we haven't been having the regular meetings like we have in the past, um, we still haven't been taking the summer off. We've been working on extensive updates and overviewing of all our new style forms within ProFund accounting. And we focused on things such as bug fixes, bug fixes, and consistency between forms, like where like forms would perform and present in the same way, where you get like consistent pop-up messages for the same things, and et cetera. Enhancing and improving things. Like we did significant updates to our remote control application and our PFA application update methods. And we updated to the new .NET platform and our control set, which we always try to keep on top of. So just a quick overview of kind of what we've been doing. We began with what turned out to be a pretty significant change in many forms, where we reset an internal option in our development environment that would help us recognize, for example, where null values may come into play or be a factor. And so we can improve on how we handle them within our application. Null values are kind of that third state where it's not set or it's not clear. It's not a clear value and it's not a set value. And this, we're hoping, results in eliminating or at least reducing items like the old item not set to an instance of an object exception, things like that. Then and that turned out to be pretty significant, where it affected a lot of places in our app, and we were able to polish that up. So we were happy about that. And then we reviewed many forms that had common functions throughout our application, and we updated our base functions to where we could utilize those more effectively wherever we could. Those were the base functions George was mentioning earlier. They also help us improve on the consistency between common forms and functions, and we can possibly utilize those to perform updates or enhancements to all those forms and functions at the same time, since they all share those base functions. We then code checked, or basically reviewed, all the code in general and all our new style forms throughout the entire application to make sure we were utilizing those base methods where possible, and that the other code basically checked out okay. And then finally, we performed a multi-step testing process where we went through multiple times, where we looked for identified bugs and addressed them appropriately, and decided on any other immediate changes we wanted to implement in this next upcoming release. And then we did it again. So just for an additional review. And then we also identified items that we found that we may want to implement in future releases, and noted those. So throughout the whole process, we fixed a few things, such as memory consumption issues where needed, and some validation processes we had that might have been causing random lockup issues in various areas. You may have experienced occasionally where payroll information might have hung up where you were adding a new record, or some anomalies when running or using the settings form. So hopefully those issues will be a thing of the past. We did new updates, including, like I mentioned, the .NET platform and the control set. We always try to stay on top of those. We also overhauled our remote control function.
Yeah, I'll get
both-
to that, Brett.
Okay, I'll skip that then.
Yeah.
And then I assume you'll also get to the update process.
Yep.
Okay, I'll skip that then too.
Just talk about how we tested. That's what it was.
Yeah,
for.
we went through all the forms extensively,
Oh,
and and it was a team-wide effort, and we communicated really close on what we found, where we were at, who was working on what. And so we're hopeful we hit all the nooks and crannies in the whole application. And like George said, many of these might not be hugely noticeable or have a visual impact when you get the update, but you should notice that things are more robust in some ways, and more consistent in like the way they present themselves. You don't get one message for one form and a different message for another. So like in the random locking up, although while it wasn't it wasn't common, it could, some of you may have experienced that, and things like that. But and we also improved on validating certain parameters when running utilities and things like that. So, and I can't think of any off the top of my head, but we're always looking to improve on our performance of various functions, features, queries when we can.
did a huge performance update when we were mucking with payroll info.
Yeah, and in fact, this update is going to include a huge database update. In fact, last time I checked,
yeah,
it was up to like 888 lines long.
It's big.
So it might even be larger than that by now. But so that's basically a quick rundown. So it's been the summer of overview and updating. So, but we're happy we actually got the time and took the time and utilized having the extra help while we could, so we could take it to this level. And we're excited to get this released so we can then move on in a more I don't know the word George used, I can't recall, but the best practices way, I think.
Yes, best practices. Best way to explain that I could come up with.
Right. So that's basically all I had to say. And
all right.
again,
Well, thanks, Brett. Appreciate
okay.
it.
Okay.
I'm gonna move on.
Okay.
All right. So like Brett was saying, we enhanced several forms. A lot of the forms, like if you clicked on next and previous, obviously those worked, but there was differences between when you clicked on new and cancel and things like that. So we've enhanced those. Every form now does the same logic for when you're changing a code. So for instance, if I have an inventory code and I need to change it from one code to another, the logic that's performed there is now the same as if I was changing a payroll code from one to another. In other words, we check to make sure you don't have any of the magical keys in it. We check for making sure it's not in use, and the messages are all the same messages, with obviously the difference being, one says inventory code, one says payroll code. But yeah, it really does help that we've gone through that. And we really did a good bottom to top test with every button, every click, every option we could possibly come up with during our testing. Now, we also improved the check for updates process. Again, we've had some issues there where you could get out of whack or out of sync, and then you would get into that wonderful message, you need to do an update, but you don't have permission to do the update. So this particular, obviously this release you won't see any of that, but after you install this release, then the check for update process will be the newer one. So we have, to get to the newer one, you have to at least use the older one for one more time. And so the newer check for update process, the idea here is that we're changing, we changed quite a bit of how we looked at when we're updating something. And I'm going to kind of show a little bit of that, but basically there's 3 different types of updates that we identified. And each one of those is going to be handled appropriately. The first is if they don't have the internet, we just kind of skip the whole process. You get one message at the very beginning that says, hey, you don't have the internet. So you click OK through that, and then it just lets you log in and move on. The second kind is that you've seen before is your database is out of date with software. You absolutely must get an update. So in that case, that update process now is a twofold update process. If that happens, then the client will update you to the right version of the database. So it won't always take you to the very latest. It will take you to the very latest that matches your version of the database you're running. So that's a little bit of a different, scenario that we've had than in the past. And then finally, the only one who's ever going to get the message that says there's a new update to the server or to the database, it will be when the admin finally gets past the login process. If that's the case, then we'll ask if the admin wants to update the software at that point. Also, we've marked this down so we only check once a day. So again, if you've done the check at the beginning of the morning and it was successful of a check, you won't do it again for the rest of the day if you log in, log out, or close the program and come back in. So the check is only once a day for everybody. And then that should pretty much cover what we've done. We think it should be very much improved. We also updated the way that we are running the update scripts for the updating the database. So we believe that should also drastically improve whether the script made it or not. And so we can give appropriate messages if the update didn't happen for the database. Then we also separated the remote control. And the reason we did that was it became obvious when we were testing a lot of the remote controls that we were having a hard time with making the remote control do the piece that it need to do and be tied to ProFund. So we separated it out to its own install. And so when you run when you get the new release, you may have to also run the install for the remote control, but it's handled separate from ProFund accounting. So that way, but it is an updated remote control. Hopefully it'll, fix a lot of the issues we've been having with it. We ran through many tests with it. And we still have one outstanding bug, but again, now we have a little bit more hands-on. We can, look into that deeper to eventually eradicate that from, what we're doing. But again, I just want to let you know that there'll still be a button on the main screen to start the remote control, but it's completely separated now from ProFund accounting into its own files and folders and things like that. As well as when you run the install, there'll be a separate button on your screen for remote control on your desktop when you run the install. We already talked about this where we added the financials at any level. And then also we're providing, at this point, we've had the address verification license, physical addresses verified button that would work if you bought a license. Well, not very many people got a license. So we worked with the company to get a generic license that we provide now that's provided. So now everybody should be able to verify against the database that's out there. There is a limit per month, which is 100,000 verifications a month. So I think we're going to be okay. But, so try not to go crazy. But like I said, if you need to verify a license to make sure it's a valid license, I really recommend using it and getting all of your licenses, getting all of your addresses in sync. And I'll show that here in a little bit when we get to the show and tell pieces. Okay, so the new features that we were going to be adding was the electronic document management. We're going to, it looks like it's okay for us to hold off on that. And then some year-end calc and tools, and that's what I call that is, we have all our the year-end taxes, what in year-end is I'm calling it the calendar year-end, not necessarily your fiscal year-end. So we have the calc and tools that go with all of the taxes, the W-2s, the 1099s, things like that. We're adding a whole slew of updates to those that we did sort of last year at the end, but not everybody was able to use them because they came out kind of after the time it was that you needed to send it. So they're kind of new this year. Okay, so we're going to go to first just a broad question and answer time. So I'm going to give a few minutes for any questions you want with it. So pop a message in the chat. If you want, I think you can unmute and ask your question directly. All right, I'm not seeing anything come through. If you have something, just like I said, when it comes in, we'll deal with it. So I'm going to get over and start running the updated version. Now, this is, again, we show message right away. It's not out there yet because we don't know the new version number, but you'll get a message at the beginning. So this is, for the updater, this is a message that shows up that says, hey, there's a new client available. So when you start up the software, you'll get, this is what we used to be where you would get something where there really wouldn't show anything, but it says there's a new client available. Would you like to update now? And this one doesn't require any magical permissions. This is saying there's just a newer version of the same that works against the same kind of database you have that's been updated. You can say yes or no. I'm just going to say no for today. And then we're going to sign in, and I'm signing in as an administrator. And so the administrator then will see a message like this. It says, there's an update for the Program Fund Accounting server. Would you like to update it now? And this is what changes the database. And we're, saying yes to this one will require all of your clients then to update. Well, will require all of your clients to update because now the server is a different version than what their client is. And again, all those updates are okay now because they're not updating the database. This is the only person who does get to update the database. So it's a little bit different of a process, but it should take all of the issues that we've been having in the past away. So I'm going to go ahead and say no for that as well. All right, so you kind of see our main screen. And if we go into payroll, I'll just quickly go through like deduction types is a good one. You can see some of the things that we did to make things a little bit better. Like for instance, I'm on E, and before, if you did a new, this would happen. It would all go blank. But then if you canceled it, it would take you to the first. We leave you now back on E. Just little things like that we did a lot of work. It takes a lot of work to get that to operate on every different screen correctly. But, we did that for deductions. We did it for bank types. So again, here, if I go to bank types and I go to, let's go to CMP and I go new and I hit a cancel, I'm still on CMP. Same thing here, like if you're deleting, like this is just a, stupid test one. So if I delete it, we didn't used to spin this, so we didn't used to put the spinner on. If I say no, it stays on NE, where before if you said no, it would go back to the first one in the list. Now that's not so bad here, but when you get to something like payables and you go to vendors, and on your vendor screen, there's a ton of vendors and you're like here on Sears, and I say, I wanted to do a new. Oh crap, I didn't really want to do a new, hit a cancel. It's nice that you stay on Sears and you don't, the whole thing doesn't go to the beginning again. Then also you can see here where we have the address in here. So we have the little address verification button that should now be after the update. That should work for everybody. So if you click it, it says the address is not valid. So there is still, because Bedrock, Illinois doesn't exist. These are all just fake addresses I did. So again, it's useful to hit it, and let's see if I can find, let's just put something in that's, I'll put in my home address. Let's see if it does that. Nope, still not valid. Oh, probably the zip code is probably the killer. Nope, doesn't like the name. Nope. There it goes. You'll notice if it does it, because it will put the four position zip on it. So again, the validator does a good job. We did things like make the phone number very similar everywhere. So you blank it out, it's blank, but as soon as you type one in, it's going to start putting in the code. 3449121, whatever. That kind of a thing. So, and then of course, when you click off it, you have did you want to save those changes? And you can say no, and it will not change. It's if I go back to Sears, it's exactly back the way it used to be. So just a lot of things that, make everything good. We do have some of the ones that have the limit where we filter. This is filtering by, I think, status. So when it has the checkbox, it means it's limited. So I don't have any of the, I'm not showing any inactive people in here. But if I undo the filter, I believe we'll have some inactives. So if I just sort it and go to the bottom, we have a few inactives. So things like that we have. Then we have accounting, just a lot of things that we spent time on, getting everything just everywhere we go. Like a lot of places, the history used to be sort of automatic, but now we're letting you key in a beginning date and an ending date. Now my fiscal year start date is year 2000 at the moment, just because I've been playing around with it. So you can click on show history. There wasn't anything to Sears during the year 2000. So if we go to year 33 to 33, it doesn't look like we have anything there either. So again, it's just a matter of, you got to find one that has history. I don't know what has history in mine. I've got a lot of stuff that's bizarre. But again, there's a button now. You can put the dates in that you want to do. There, you can go and run the distribution report for Sears, stuff like that. That's just available right here, at your fingertips. Another thing we did that was kind of big was in call log, we started with getting this to work correctly. Let me see if I can get the screen up right. We have these little spots where we can come in here and hit, and it should bring up the appropriate dialogue to, make a change to it. And you don't have to show all history. Again, the previous version or the current version you have only shows year to date. You don't have any ability to change it. So it was always year to date, and the boxes will come up immediately. We have a question from Bob. He says, will you have to set the dates every time you look up a history, or will there be a way to show all history? You'll have to set the dates every time you want to look up all history, but when you come in there, if your fiscal year, it's going to start with your fiscal year start date and end at the end. So it'll give you the 1 year that we did before. But if you want more than that, you can back it up. It's just for right now, my year happened to be year 2000. I suppose I could change that. We can show it. Let me go ahead and do that real quick. So let me just go in and fix my fiscal year start date. 20. Let's make it 2019, because if I don't, Okay, so 1/1 of 2019 is my fiscal year start date. So I think there's a done button I gotta hit here, or just close it. Yeah, I gotta say done. Okay, and I can close this. Yes. We'll run it again. Yep. Nope. Nope. Okay, so now if I come in here and we go back to payables, we go to vendors, and I go to the history tab, you'll see that it's 1/1 of 2019 to 12/31/2019, showing the history of it. And if I really wanted to go back, I could just change this to like 1900, and then that would show all history. Let me pick one that I know has something. I think Air Gas does. There you go. So that's like the history of everything. And if we come back, we can then pop it back to 2019. And that would be what we had for that year. The reason we did this show history thing was because if you just keep doing this, we didn't want to have to keep running the history check and loading all that data when we don't really need to, if you're not really looking at it. If you see what I'm saying. If you're just doing something else in here, working on it, then that way you can kind of see it. So like I said, just a lot of little changes like this that just add up to just a ton of work on our side to make the engine really very, very, very smooth.
I had a quick comment on that.
Oh, what's that?
On the vendors, if you just in vendors and you set the date range, the date range will not change between vendors. So if like if you want,
I don't know if that's true anymore. We have an issue with that, I think. So let me go into here and change it. So let's say I went to 2010. Ooh, let's not do that. Year of my Lord 210. 2010. Show history, but then if I come here, yeah. Okay, so we didn't change the begin date. So if you're doing, multiple of them like that, I'm not hitting the right buttons today. But as soon as you walk off it, you still have to click show history on whichever one you're going to go to. It's not going to automatically load the history for the other one. So that, just be aware that, when I go to Ag Game, it's going to clear the history. I got to click show history if I want to see his history. Simple enough, though. I mean, it's, again, actively, we want to make sure the data is correct, showing the active data. Yeah, we go all the way back to 2010. Okay. So that's the last part for show and tell. I think there was something else I wanted to show. So you saw a little bit about the updater, how it's going to operate. What are the things that we did?
we're going to show remote control.
Real remotes, it doesn't really change. I mean, basically, yeah, it's not installed. Yeah, the remote, I don't have it installed on mine right now. I didn't get a chance to work with that. That's one of the things we still have to do. We're not expected to get this release out until Wednesday or Thursday, so there's a few little pieces that we're still tying together. Like, I'm not sure if this button got all of the pieces added to do the check to see if it's, I've been playing with the check for updates, so what I have in mind isn't really what, everybody else has, because I'm trying to find errors, or if there's a mistake, I'm trying to make sure it doesn't completely whack out the whole system. So unfortunately, I didn't really do a fresh update before we did the webinar. But again, the remote, I can't really show it because I don't have it. I can probably go to my main desktop and get the remote. Nope, I don't even have it there anymore. Yeah, well, we'll have it. You'll see it when you install. What will happen is when you click it, it'll say, I can't find the new remote. Do you want to try to install it? And if you say yes, then we'll try to find the install and run the install. But just so you understand, the install goes in a whole different folder than ProFund, and it won't be, the remote won't get updated anymore as part of ProFund. It'll just be available from there. But the idea is that when we do have an update to it, we'll let you know, and we'll be able to then have you be able to get that update when we need to. Let's see, is there anything else that I did that was huge? No, I don't think there's anything else on here. Like I said, it's, all these things are just what they used to look like, with just a few little things that were changed. Things like in here, if you try to change a code and you put in, an apostrophe where we don't like it, and then you hit save, it says we couldn't save it, so we click OK, but we stay on 44 North, and it goes back whenever there's a save issue that's of violation, we come back to the basic idea. So again, we don't blow up, we don't come back, it just comes right back to where it was. And if you do change it and it's a good one, like we take off the H and we hit a save. So gives you the message, and yes, we want to continue, and it will then do the save, and now it's 44 North. Simple as that, just things like that we did to make, and then of course, it's all, we always had an issue. Sometimes some of the forms had issues. As soon as you made a change, you clicked off it, it wouldn't say there was a change to be made. And if you click no, it sometimes wouldn't get rid of it. So if I click on yes, now it's good. Then I go back to 44 North. There you go. All right, let's see. Is there anything else I should show, guys? Brett, Paul?
Were you going to show the new financials account or not?
We can go into it real quick. Financials. And I don't know if I even have data. That's the problem.
Yeah, it looks like Tony, you do for 2023.
2023 sounds like a good one. So we'll edit, view him. And you want to hit add account?
Yep.
So when we add an account, we can put in my 201 0 003 004. No, here's a good one. Let's do 040. And I just want Dafford, that one. And I can then, the budget is $54. Save. Oh, that's nice, Paul. Why?
It could be because I don't know. It should be able
I
to
think
add
it's good. Is it not because it's in an old, my fiscal year is now 2019?
it.
No? Well, obviously we have some, doesn't matter. It's going to add it no matter which way you're in, right?
Right.
All right, well, obviously we have a bug, at least on my data. We'll have to see what was going on with it.
George, did you want to talk about the new account number change utility?
Oh, yes. We had somebody who needed to start making their we fixed up and added this account number utility that's important to know. So if you're going to be making a change, let's see. Let's see if I can get Brian, can you unmute for a minute and give me one of your code changes? I've got sort of your database here.
I think Brian might have had to leave.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, let's see. I think, let me see if anyone from there, yeah, somebody from Chippewa County is still on. I can't remember, so anyways, normally you have like, let's just go into one. So I have 2010 and we need to change, I can't remember what it is. I think it's like the third level 109 needs to be something new. So basically I need the third level 109 to become something new. So I apply that. So I've got that number, so I can come in here and I can make that say 114, for instance. But if you do need to make those changes for the account, because the new account manual has several control code changes. So if you do need to make those, just give us a call on the phone. We'll help you through one or two of them, and then it'll be pretty apparent how to work it. I'm not ready right now, obviously, because evidently the update button doesn't show up for some reason. So we'll dig into what's going on with that. Okay, is there anything else we want to cover? I think that about wraps it up. It's 11 o'clock. I kind of promise, I know this one's a little longer, but I think, like I said, we've done a lot. This will be out as we get going, in a couple of days. So we're almost finished with all the testing. Thank you for attending. And I'll leave any last questions.
You are now working smarter with ProFund Accounting. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more content like this.